if I'm like this and I'm hunched over with my shoulders and I'm kind of tucking my head in and I'm making myself small, what do you think that says is going on for me on a mental, emotional level?
Hello, and welcome to the Evolving with Jessica podcast. My name is Jessica. I am an integrative nutrition health coach, a holistic skin healing guide, and certified life coach. In this podcast, we cover topics such as holistic health and wellness, nutrition, and spirituality. If you enjoy or gain any insight, please leave a review. This makes the show more searchable, which helps others find the information too. In this episode, I am joined by Gracie Da Silva. Gracie is a holistic health, life, and movement coach who supports people to come into their greatest alignment in all aspects of life. Her work is multidimensional, supporting people physically to improve their posture, move better, and feel strong, mobile, pain-free, and confident in their bodies. On the level of the mind, she supports people to overcoming limiting beliefs, process emotions, heal through trauma, and gain more control over their mental space. And in their life, she supports humans to create a lifestyle that not only promotes optimal health and healing, but is helping individuals to align to their soul's mission here on this earth. You can reach out to Gracie via her socials in the description, and if you are interested about her work, be sure to check out the Infinite Being Academy, the signature program that she runs alongside her partner, Teamo, to support conscious individuals to set the foundations they need in health and life. Interestingly enough, if you caught the last episode, it was with her partner, Teamo. I think both episodes are full of valuable information when it comes to self-development on a healing journey. And in this episode, we delve into the world of posture, movement, and self-care, exploring various aspects that contribute to overall well-being. Join us as we discuss Gracie's daily movement routine, demystify myofascial release and its importance, and learn how to correct posture, including the infamous Instagram posture. Discover how posture and emotions are interconnected and how we train our bodies to reflect how we want to feel. We also share an exercise to counteract tech neck, a common issue in our digital age. Additionally, we'll be sharing personal experiences with chiropractic work and contemplating the age-old question of whether it's best to sleep with or without a pillow. Spoiler alert, it depends. So you'll want to stick around to the end to hear that answer. If you find this podcast because you're struggling with skin issues, check out the skin healing resources in the description. They're completely free. And now, enjoy this episode with Gracie Da Silva. I want to know what you've done so far today for movement, for health. Like, what's a typical day look like for you to optimize your body and your health?
Okay. So for me, a normal day optimizing my body for health is getting up in the morning and as early as possible, trying to get outside and going for a walk. Going for a walk is like the most natural human movement that is so foundational to our health. So movement, outside, go for a walk. And then for me at the moment, my journey is really focusing on mobility, is trying to like really not master mobility, but understand what's happening in my body and move through any restrictions and habitual patterns. And so I'm doing a lot of myofascial release. I'm doing a lot of like, if you're not aware of it, it's like cars. So like I'm moving each and every one of my joints first thing in the morning, as I like to call it, is like my maintenance. Because for our joints, we need to understand like they have a function. And if they don't use that function, then they lose that function.
Okay, I want to back up for 1 second. Did you say myofascial release?
Myofascial release.
Okay, what does that look like?
Okay, so Are you aware of the fascial system in the body?
Vaguely. I would definitely explain it for the listeners.
Okay, so fascia is essentially your connective tissue. Yeah, it's like this very, very thin connective tissue that is quite literally in everything. It connects everything to everything. Your muscles to your bones to your ligaments to your tendons, your muscles to other muscles. It's surrounding all of your organs. Quite literally, everything in your body is connected through fascia. And so often people think that when they've got restrictions in the body, it's very muscular. But often what we're finding is actually it's part of your fascia. So your fascia is responsible for everything being connected. So literally you'll have a sheet of fascia running from like the soles of your feet all the way to like your eyes. So when we say like everything is connected, like really everything is connected, and it's through the fascial system that is connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like a muscle, like a thin type of muscle, or like a skin, like what does that look like?
So inside the body, you can think of it almost like spider web / like egg white, thin consistency. And this is essentially for many, many years, people would just be like scientists cutting through the body to try and examine like what's over here, what organ's this, what muscle's this. They would just simply cut through the fascia and they would disregard it as like a byproduct of the body that wasn't important.
Okay.
Yeah. What we're realizing now is that it's super important. And so fascia essentially is keeping our body in the way that we're needing to move. And so what happens is, think of it's all connected. Yeah. So if I have a restriction in the body, yeah. So think about, you've ever had a knot in your body, you've had like tight shoulders, or you've had something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens there is essentially there'd be like your fascia in that area would start to contract. Yeah. That would affect the muscles because it's all connected. And the fascia in that area will essentially dehydrate and it starts to become restricted. This is when our movement starts to get a little bit more rigid and we lose some of our like full range of motion. Yeah. And so myofascial release is essentially a really simple, a really nurturing practice actually to target those trigger areas. You might know them in your body as like knots. Yeah. Target those trigger areas. I tend to use something called a lacrosse ball, and you literally just apply pressure, and what it does, it's kind of like a sponge, the fascia, and as you put pressure onto it, staying there for a few minutes, it's almost like when you take it off, it can open up and it soaks in all of the water from your body to rehydrate it, to let it go back to its natural position.
Oh, wow. That's neat to picture.
Honestly, it's the practice itself, I've got a guide, I'm happy to send it over to you. It's one of these things that it's like you can become your own masseuse when you understand how to target each of the different areas. And so more often than not, we all have different habitual ways of sitting or standing or moving, which cause restrictions in our fascia, which essentially make it so that we're holding ourselves in funny positions. And then we have lots of compensatory patterns, and it affects us in mentally, emotionally, all the different ways.
Okay. So every morning you make sure that you take a walk, and then you do your fascia release, and then you move all of your joints.
Yeah. So for me, it's important to be able to listen to my body and what it's needing. So for me, you'll find me like more towards like my menstruation cycles, like when I tend to do the slower myofascial release nurturing practices that are kind of like a self-massage. And then more towards like my ovulation, you'll probably find me more like going for a walk and then going straight to the gym. Yeah, so it depends when my cycle it is. If not, I'll be moving to the gym later on in the day.
Okay, so the gym is a non-negotiable.
The gym is a non-negotiable, not every day, each every second day.
Okay.
Yeah. My mobility is my non-negotiable.
Okay. And I want to know how you got to this place. Did you have an accident, like a physical injury, or why do you care so much about your mobility? Like as a movement coach, like how did you become that?
So it wasn't through like a specific injury. I always wanted to feel good in my body. And so my journey took me through yoga. I studied yoga. I was practicing yoga for probably, when I say practicing, I mean teaching yoga for about 4 or 5 years. And I didn't have injuries that were affecting me all of the time by any means. But every so often I'd have a wrist injury or a hip injury. And this is like a hip injury that had been going on for not even an injury, just something that was occurring in my hip where I didn't know how to resolve it. I'd done all the stretches. I was in pigeon pose every day, trying to make sure that I lengthened the muscles out, but nothing was really fixing it. And so this is when I actually met my partner, Teamo. Not met him, but this is when he was doing his own movement journey. And I think for the listeners here, there's a podcast with Teamo there as well. So he actually introduced me into functional movement. And it was through my exploration of it that I was like, wow, my body can feel so much better and so much stronger and move so much more efficiently. Like it was a proper epiphany moment as I went into it. And so I was learning from him. And as I was learning, I started to, with my one-on-one clients, integrate what I was learning with them. And these are people that we've been doing the same things, trying to rehabilitate their injuries through the way that I knew and not really seeing huge improvements. I started using the myofascial release. I started using like functional movement, fascial training, and we were having incredible results. People that were in pain literally daily were actually able to move through their days without pain. And it was just incredible. And so, you know, the famous saying, like, when you know better, you do better. It was one of these moments where I couldn't deny that this was really working both for me and for the people that I was supporting. And then from then I was kind of sold on more functional movement. And then kind of from there, I've just continued my learning. And as I continue learning, I know better, keep doing better.
I love that. Let's talk about posture. I feel like it's a huge issue now, especially because of technology and the way we hold our phones and just everything. I mean, I know for me, even I know better, but I will lay on my bed on my laptop. And but at the same time, when I'm sitting at my desk, I use like a waist trainer, but I use it as like a back brace, like just to like keep me straight. So like I'll put that around my waist, and then I'll have like this little like strappy thing on that I put on my arms to pull my shoulders back. So it just kind of like has me sitting in this good posture, because I'll slouch over, you know. And so what can people do about that? Is that something that you help them with?
Yeah. So when it comes to posture, it's all well and good trying to like maintain good posture in every single moment. But like you said, it's just not a realistic ask for most people with working from our laptops, with being glued down to our phones down here. And so, as well as being mindful of how we are holding ourselves in any moment, you can also actually train your body to naturally hold a better position. And so probably the easiest way I can explain this is like in your body, there are always going to be muscles lengthening and muscles shortening. Yeah.
At the same time.
At the same time. So Jessica, what's like your natural pattern as you find yourself sitting?
Kind of like I'm sitting now, I guess. But sorry.
And what's happening as you're sitting now?
So for me, I have like, okay, I have a few things going on. I have a little bit of scoliosis. And then I also have, I had a herniated and deviated disc in my back years and years and years ago. I don't like to claim that as my truth anymore because I don't even know if it's like a thing, but it's just more comfortable for me when I also am like slightly pigeon-toed, especially on my left foot. So there's just certain ways that are more comfortable for me to sit. Like sometimes I'll put one leg up on the chair, so I'm like halfway like cross-legged. It's easier when my hips are turned out. And I try to be conscious of keeping my lower back kind of pivoted in, so it's not like I'm not like poking my butt out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so a few bits going on.
Right.
Have you been working on those throughout? You kind of speak about those as if you are quite aware of what's going on in your body, which is amazing. Have you been working on that journey?
Yeah, I would say. I'm very, very conscious of my like the way I hold myself and sit and lay and everything. I think I've always been drawn more towards exercises that will help me correct these things. So I'm very much into Pilates. I like yoga, things like that. And yeah, I try to be conscious even when I'm walking to like turn my feet out more
Mm-hmm.
to get them more used to being straight instead of turning in. Because when I was younger, I remember my parents took me to the doctor about it, and they wanted to, the only way they said they could fix it was by cutting my hip and like turning my entire leg out. And they didn't want to do that. So they basically told me to, when I'm walking, to like turn my foot out. Of course, I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe. I was very young. So I'm not like paying attention to the way I'm walking then. But now, I wish I did. And now I am very aware of that. But
Wow, yeah. It's amazing that the automatic response to them is to cut something out of your body in order to try and fix it.
yeah, cut you open to just like turn it, because it starts all the way up at the hip. So they can't like fix my foot at my foot. They have to turn the whole leg out. But yeah, and so now I'm wondering too, because that little thing affects the alignment of your entire body.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you can speak on that, like when you do have something that is out of alignment or not properly functioning, how does that affect the rest of your body?
Yeah, for sure. And so we need to understand that everything in our body has a function. And so when it can't perform the function, and your body's super adaptable. So it's not like if you can't do something in a joint that you just won't be able to do it. Somewhere else in your body will compensate for the lack of movement ability in a different area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the way that it has knock-on effects is different depending on what's going on in everyone's different body. Yeah, so you said you've got some scoliosis, you've got some internal rotation happening at the feet, you've got some, it sounds like a little bit of external rotation pattern in the hips. And so the simplest way of like, if we put this into like a posture position that most people can relate to, think of what you said around like your hips tilting forward. Yeah. And so I call this Instagram posture. This is like the classic butt sticks out, kind of and so this is where I mean about shortening and lengthening. So if we think about that position where you're sticking your bum out, where's shortening and where's lengthening in that positioning?
I'm not sure if this is correct, but I did learn the other day that because that's the bottom of your spine, so then like the top, your neck is going to compensate. So like your neck will stick out more.
There's honestly, so when we go into this, is like there'll be immediate things that happen and then there'll be knock-on things that happen. And so your body is all connected. And so it's like a chain reaction. But if we think about locally, what's happening is that the muscles in our lower back, they shorten to get our butt to stick out. And then the muscles in the abdomen, especially the lower abdomen, they lengthen in order to let that happen. And so think about the posture. Yeah. So you got your butt stuck out, you've got your lengthened abdomen, and even just that pattern without all the other things that are going on in someone's body. And everyone has lots of things going on in their body, more than you care to realize. Even just that pattern in itself, if we're walking in that pattern, if we're sitting in that pattern, that's going to lead to over compression in the lower back. This is where we get a lot of people with lower back pain, and also really restricts our ability to just like hold our core, like our actual core strength, just from that habitual pattern. Yeah, whether that's been chosen upon, that's why I call it Instagram posture, because this is like the posture that you'll see in all of the photos. It's like for women, they want to enhance these aspects of themselves, so sometimes they subconsciously, consciously put themselves into positions in order to like enhance their features. We all do it. I did it for many years before I realized that I was doing it. But from that, it has lots of knock-on effects. Like you said, it affects the way that we hold our neck positioning. It affects our rib cage positioning. If we're someone that also hunches over, this can affect our ability to breathe properly.
So let me ask about that then. So what if instead of it starting at your butt, like where you're poking your butt out, like what if you're actually starting with like your neck being out? So like if your elbows are on a desk and you're leaned forward, then is that going to cause the bottom of your spine to tilt out then, because it's compensating for you hunching forward?
So if your head positioning's forward, is it going to cause you to tilt?
Right. Instead of like it being the other end first, it could also happen the opposite, right? Like,
yeah. So you'll find that like the hips, they're such a central part of the body that what's happening there tends to dictate what's happening elsewhere in the body, rather than like your neck's a little bit higher up, it's further away from the center, so it's less impacting what's going on structurally in that aspect that's holding you in your trunk. But when it comes to your neck positioning, it's going to be affecting somewhere in your spine. It won't necessarily bring you into that hip tilt position, depending on what your pattern was already down there. Yeah, it might impact you more in the middle back and extend those muscles and make you lean forward from like your thoracic spine, for example. Yeah. So often hips play a real key role.
yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
So then emotionally, I know you speak about different aspects that the physical body impacts you on an emotional level. So what does that look like if someone does have poor posture or they're not in alignment? And also, this is going to be a second question, but how do you feel about chiropractors?
Okay. Which question first?
You pick.
Okay, so emotionally, let's go there. So I think it's important for us to understand, and I feel like the people listening, if they listen to you, understand that like everything truly is connected, mentally, physically, emotionally. And when we look at our emotions, we need to understand that different areas of the body not only can have like how do we say this simply? When it comes to emotions, we have different holding patterns in our body. So you said that you've got like, you turn your feet in, you do these different things. For me, I close down on my left side of the body or I hunch over. And so you can look at it posturally of like, if I'm like this and I'm hunched over with my shoulders and I'm kind of tucking my head in and I'm making myself small, what do you think that says is going on for me on a mental, emotional level? You've got that aspect of it, as opposed to someone that's standing there with their chest nice and proud, open position with their arms. There's this level, but there's also understanding that emotions are stored within the cells of our body. And so where there is a restriction, like we talked about earlier, we also find that there may be an emotional issue that's stored within that area. That's why there is a restriction, or that's why there is a tendency to hold ourselves in a certain position in order to protect that area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to realigning your body, and so when you really do take the journey of like looking at your structural health and trying to bring your body back into alignment and back into balance, whether you realize that you had emotions to process, it's like that myofascial release technique that I explained earlier. We often have people move through that technique and then come to us and be like, well, great, I feel better, like I feel better physically, but I have to say, like, I cried during this time, or I felt a big sense of rage during this time, or I had a memory from when I was really young and it made me like remember a significant event that I'd suppressed for a really long amount of time.
Which is great.
Which is beautiful because it's coming up for healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we can understand like how much emotion is stored within the body, it quite literally changed the way you hold yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so many ways to let it go, but this is one of them.
Yeah. And so like this is why the work that we do is quite holistic in that sense, is because sometimes when someone has a health issue going on or an injury going on or some kind of pattern that they're trying to overcome, it takes a holistic approach where we're looking at, okay, physically, do I need to do some physical release in this area? Do I need to lengthen, find space in this area? Do I need to find strength in other areas to find balance? And what pattern is this signifying that I haven't resolved and that I need to look into?
Mm-hmm.
What is it showing that is still there, it's still unprocessed and is still being stored within the body that is needing to be released?
Mm-hmm.
The body really keeps the score. And so when we can understand like different areas of the body tend to hold, you can look into like Louise Hay's work. She's done some really great studies around this, of like shoulders represent X amount of emotions. You have different areas of the body that like have tendency to represent different issues. Your spine, for example, this is all about like your support in life. Your hips, it's all about like taking the next step forward, like being strong in the direction that you're going into. And so often like these things that are happening in the body that might seem completely random, actually it's just your body telling you a story and giving you a message and trying to speak to you to help you understand what you're needing to understand.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so beautiful. There's one part of this too. I want to back into this. You'll probably know more than I do, but this is profound for people because we can change it. We can change the way we feel by changing the way we stand and the way that we present ourselves. So we might naturally be hunched over or, crossing our arms or closed off somehow. But if we become aware of that and we consciously choose to open up our arms and roll our shoulders back and keep our head high, and making those changes your thoughts and changes the way you feel about yourself and the way you present yourself, so then other people see you differently and then you see yourself differently. And it's like this pattern that you just have to get in the habit of showing up this way. So you don't have to start out, I feel like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you can start out doing it that way, like just showing up this way and then build off of there, instead of becoming aware of like, okay, I'm closed off and hunched over. Like, yes, my body's communicating with me, but I can do something while I'm observing that. I can do something to change that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like creating any habit. We're changing the way in which we are holding ourselves, but often moving, because our posture is not just influenced by the way that we're standing, it is the way that we're moving. And I said like walking's like the most fundamental thing. It's because it's using your whole fascial system. And so yes, we definitely can change the way that we're holding ourselves, and you'll see almost instantaneously how that can really change the way that you're feeling in a situation. They say like stand with your arms wide open like 2 minutes before an interview, like with your chest out high, and you'll feel the confidence running through your body. Energy can move through your body more. And also, the only thing with that is that it requires a lot of mental effort to remember to do something, just like with any habit, because the way that we hold ourselves and the way that we move is so deeply ingrained within our subconscious. It's such a subconscious program. It's not something that we do consciously pretty much at all until we choose to do it consciously. And so one of the most sustainable ways of doing it is actually to integrate corrective exercises that make it so that although your pattern is here, shortened, and I say here as in like rounded forward in your shoulders, that is all of the muscles on the front of your chest shortening and the muscles in your upper back lengthening. If you can correct that, for example, by releasing the tension in the front of your chest and then shortening the muscles in the upper back and training yourself that way intentionally for your specific pattern, then it's actually going to feel easier and like no effort to be doing that because you've trained your body to be doing that.
Okay. And yes. And so there's different ways people can do that, right? Because to me, I'm imagining, you said you used a ball, and so you could rub the ball. And then for your back, I imagine using like weights. I imagine doing some type of movement with weights at the gym.
Yeah, for sure. You'd use something that's actually going to put enough strain on that muscle to make an adaptive change. And so when it comes to correcting postures, like everyone will have a certain pattern. We recognize that a lot of humans have the same pattern because we live very similar lifestyle. It's the nuances. Yeah, do I lean more to the left? Do I lean more to the right? Have I got a pattern that I'm holding in my neck that makes me do something funny? Like, it's the nuances there, but otherwise there's quite a lot of similarities in the way that people hold themselves in that sense.
Okay,
Definitely.
so sorry.
So definitely phone posture.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they call it tech neck, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awful. Yeah, so you mentioned exercises. Are there, without, I know this is kind of difficult to show because of the way we're filming, but is there any type of exercise you could explain to people that they could do to help with their posture?
Yes. So again, it depends on what's going on with their particular posture. So if I was giving you an example, for example, if we were trying to realign your scoliosis for the specific way that you were having deviations in your spine, that exercise may do the opposite effect on someone else that doesn't have that tendency.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But in terms of something that we all have is the tech neck. Yeah. So we've got either the neck going forward or we'll have it kind of just like tilted down. And sometimes the shoulders will be coming with us too. And so even just practicing being against a wall, which luckily I am in this moment, being against a wall and trying to get, especially, so if you're a person listening that has that Instagram posture that we were talking about earlier, the hips tilting forward, bum sticks out, and then maybe your shoulders are rounding forward too. That's quite a classic posture that we see very often. Bringing yourself to a wall, standing, getting your bum against the wall, trying to get your shoulders against the wall, and then trying to draw in your navel and press your back as close to the wall as possible is going to be a really nice way of correcting that posture, lengthening out the lower back, activating in the core. Yeah, so that's one element of it. And then the other is just like practice retracting your head. Yeah. And so this is not a pretty thing to practice for anyone that tries this. Sometimes I'll just cue this as like trying to give yourself like a double chin sensation.
Yeah.
Pretty, I know. I'm practicing being here and just feeling what it feels like to try and get your spine more into alignment. There's nuances, and it's the work we do is super like technical in terms of like feel in this area, and we try and make all of our movements that we do full body integration. It's kind of like you said, it's like when you're walking, trying to keep your toes out, because what's happening at the feet is affecting what's happening at the knees, is affecting what's happening at the hips, is affecting what's happening in the spine, is affecting what's happening in the shoulders. Like, so although we might do an exercise to try and say correct that lower back positioning, when we're doing it, we're trying to be aware of every aspect in our body because it's all interconnected.
Yes.
And so this is our spin on this. I won't speak on this too long, but like, this is why we see so many issues come about in like traditional training, is because so many people are used to doing exercise and they're just trying to target one muscle in their body without really caring what the rest of the body is doing, because this is their time to target that specific muscle group. And often what that's doing is that is leading to compensation elsewhere in the body, and we're actually creating restrictions in our body which are going to lead to issues later on down the line.
Can I just tell you, you're like inside my head right now, because I am trying to transition more to weight training and less Pilates.
Yeah.
I've done like Pure Barre, Pilates, things like that. I've done different types of workouts my whole life. But my struggle in my mind is, well, if I'm doing my planned out weight training exercise every other day, or doing upper body, then lower body, then full body, or however I do it, I'm just doing the same muscles over and over and over again. And I know that has its benefits, and I know that will like shape your body. However, I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of strength training that I get from Pilates and those type of workouts. And so I recently was trying to like do both, and it was just too much physically.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, when you work out one muscle and then those people forget about the other muscles, how do you do that with weight training?
Yeah, no, this is a really great question. And I feel like a lot of people are in that place where they're like, I want to get fit. I want to feel fit and also look fit. I want to feel good in my body. And so I'm working hard, I'm training, I'm showing up for the things I need to do, but I also want to actually feel good in my body, and I don't want it to ache and I don't want it to hurt. And so where do we find that balance? And so like, for the record, like I'll still do an upper body day and I'll still do a lower body day. I just don't do them as my sole way of exercising. And so there's a couple elements to this. So elements being, when you understand and you've taken some time to like develop the understanding of, okay, how do I need to hold myself in terms of like all of the small minute, like, you know, Pilates feels like it's training like the smaller muscles closer towards the spine that are really holding your structure. And then those weight training kind of feels like it's training more of your external muscles.
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're aware of how to navigate the more internal muscles that are holding your physical structure, your skeleton in the position that you want it to hold, when you're aware of how to do that and what your unique body needs to bring it back into alignment, if you're going into your weight training with that awareness, it's very different than going into your weight training without that awareness.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's understanding certain exercises are going to cause you to have certain postural tendencies. Yeah. So like, I'm trying to give an example that someone's going to know. It's like, if you know the lat pull down machine.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, like traditionally, if someone's going to be doing that exercise, they're going to be arching their back quite a lot, trying to really target those lat muscles.
Okay.
In that, they kind of like lean back and they really like activate those muscles. Fine. If you're trying to get those muscles, I understand why you're doing it. But if you're someone that's got that Instagram posture and then you're training each week, that exercise, you're training that habit into your body to be stronger. Yeah. And so we believe that everyone should be able to do like whatever they want in their training. Yeah, whether it's weight training, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's whatever it is, but they need to understand the impact that the exercise is having on their body. Yeah,
Right.
so it might be like tweaking some of the exercises that you're doing so they don't have as much of a detrimental effect or opposing effect to what you're needing to come into alignment. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like once you've set a foundation, you'll find it easier to maintain your foundation, and you'll start to notice what exercises aren't going to help you. So like, for example, my sister, I just recently joined the gym with my sister so I can have a training buddy, because I find that brings me so much joy. And her partner is also a personal trainer, but he trains physique more. Yeah, so he's much more focused on trying to get you whatever physique you're trying to recognize, rather than the postural training that we do. And so my sister's always like, turn your feet out, because then you're gonna like get bigger glutes and do all these things. And I'm like, no, that's the exact for me. You know, you had to try and turn your feet out. For me, my pattern is I need to try and turn them in, because I'm holding a lot of tension in my hips, and that makes me arch my back. And so you start to develop an understanding of, is that going to support my body, or is that not going to support my body, once you know what your unique body needs.
Yes, makes total sense.
Yeah. Was there another part to your question that I missed?
Chiropractor.
Chiropractor.
I have mixed feelings about them because I feel like I've gone through spurts where I've seen one once a week or once a month, depending on what's going on. And I feel like you can overdo it, or I feel like my body was, at least, and then it would just crack randomly. And I don't think that's totally normal.
Yeah, so we actually, for a long time, we kind of described the work that we were doing in our academy was like inner chiropractics for your body. And so we actually work with chiropractors, and they will recommend people to us to try and, so, you know, in chiropractor, they make an adjustment to you. They physically make an adjustment to your spine to try and bring it into alignment. That's like their objective in the session.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing about that is that it's a manual adjustment physically done externally to you. And so when you say like sometimes it feels like you can overdo it, it's like, yeah, sometimes it really does feel like you can overdo it. And the only thing about making these adjustments is that if you're continuing to hold yourself in the same patterns, to move in the same ways, to sit in the same ways, to sleep in the same ways, like to feel, think in the same ways, your body's just going to naturally default back into those same patterns, and you're going to have to go and see the chiropractor again. He's going to have to do the same adjustment for you again, and that will be good for a few days or a few weeks before having to go back and rely on that person to make that adjustment within you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so Teamo, my partner, he's very close to a local chiropractor around here, and he's always, for the people that are like he's seeing too frequently, is like, no, you need to be doing something to make this last longer in your body. It's like, this is what we do. We help people to realign their spines, to realign their whole body structures in a way that's sustainable and will stay that way through your training, rather than someone else do it for you. It's like, can I do this? Sometimes a chiropractor will be needed if something's going on. It's like with scoliosis, we've helped people to realign, but there are instances where you might need some external manipulations happening. You just have to be mindful. I say this as like, I have a friend who my best friend actually, who went to a chiropractor for her spinal issues, and they didn't check actually what was going on, and she was off work for like 6 months because she literally couldn't walk after having some of the chiropractor adjustments, because they were too, the word aggressive wants to come in, but for her body and for what was going on, because they didn't take scans to see that there was actually a reason why they shouldn't be doing any manipulations on it, because their body couldn't handle it. And so I'd always say, like, be mindful, and if you can do it yourself internally rather than get manipulated externally, like, always empower yourself, because that's going to be the longest, most sustainable way of doing it. And it also empowers yourself to know, like, okay, if I've been a bit lazy in my posture, if I've been a bit habitual in my movement, if I've been having some low times and I've kind of been like hiding away in a ball on my bed for a few weeks, it's like, I know what I need to do to make myself feel better again. I don't need to go to someone else.
Yeah, yeah. Plus, it kind of freaks me out just a little bit. I mean, you're the only one that really knows, like, you're the only one in your body. So, giving someone outside of yourself that complete power on manipulating your body in a way, yeah, like you said, just being mindful.
I mean, chiropractors are super intelligent, and I have a few friends that are chiropractors, and when you start working with the human body in the ways that they do, it's like I can work with someone and I can tell if they've got like a spine, like a vertebrae side popping out of place. You can feel that. I'm not one that's going to be doing that unless it's like someone that I'm very close to and I feel really comfortable with, and we've got that relationship. But there are ways to realign that might take a little bit longer than someone just popping in, and then normally like 10-minute sessions, and it's just like bosh, in, out, you're done. Longer than that 10-minute session than you would with someone else, but it's going to be a whole lot more gentle. It's going to be moving at your pace, and again, it empowers you to be doing it rather than relying on someone else to be doing it. And I feel like this is the most important aspect when it comes to like all things health. It's like, where can I go that's actually going to empower me to be able to support me for the longest amount of time?
Yeah, I do love chiropractors, but yeah, just being in tune with your own body is important.
Yeah. And it's like, if they're making adjustment, how can I make the adjustment that they are doing last as long as possible?
Right. Do you sleep with pillows?
So I have a whole array of pillows that were going on when I sleep. Yes, sometimes I'll sleep completely without. Or if I'm sleeping like on my back, I'll sleep either completely without, or I'll sleep with a very thin pillow. Are you asking posturally wise?
Yes, so I will sleep with no pillow if I'm on my back, but if I'm on my side, I'll have a pillow.
Yeah, and so sleep positioning is actually a funny one because we're spending a very large proportion of our day in whatever position that we're sleeping in. And so setting up your sleep position for success is actually huge. This is what, like a third of your day?
Right.
And so, yeah, sleeping without a pillow would be the most optimal, not only for your posture, but also to allow your brain to like fully detox. Like when you're in this position, when you're sleeping, with your head really kind of lifted from one or two pillows, for example, your brain can't detox as well because the pathway in which it detoxes on is actually compromised. You're literally, you're compromising it through the position of your body.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so you often find yourself feeling clearer after sleeping completely flat. But definitely on your side, grab a pillow, because otherwise you're just kind of sleeping with your ear down towards your shoulder. Yeah. But yeah, I have a lot of pillows. More so, less for my neck, but more so I like to sleep on my side. And so if we're sleeping on your side, if I like to like hug a pillow, I like to have a pillow between my knees, and that just like essentially keeps the structure of your body a little bit more. Think about your knees knocking together, or naturally you have a gap between your knees. And so I use like pillows between my knees just to keep that natural gap, my hip positioning. And I like to hug a pillow as well because it stops my chest from collapsing down as well.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a new one.
Optimizing sleep position, pillows for side sleeping, minimal pillows for back sleeping, unless it's underneath your knees. So if anyone's got that Instagram posture that we were talking about, or a pillow underneath your knees when you're laying flat rather than under your head, and that'd be really helpful for them.
Okay, I'm gonna try that.
Yes, it's so nice. When you lift your knees a little bit, it just takes some pressure off of your low back.
Okay, this has been very enlightening. Is there anything else that you can share that would maybe help the listeners with their movement or their posture, or their alignment, anything like that?
I think mostly it's just becoming aware, like taking the moments where you come into your own awareness to just be like, what is happening in my body? Am I leaning to one side? Are my shoulders rolling forward? Is my head extended forward? Do I always sit with my legs in a certain position? And when we can just start to be aware of it, it's kind of like what you were suggesting earlier. It's like the more we can bring our conscious awareness to what we're doing, and then with intention change it, it's the first step. It's the first step to everything. It's bringing your awareness there.
Yes. Where can people find you?
So people can find me on Instagram at Gracie Da Silva, GraciEDasilva. And they can also find my work on infinitebeing.co. So that's just infinitebeing.co. That's our web address, and that is also our Instagram too.
Wonderful. I will have all that in the description. And I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
So what is your number one health tip, whether it's mindset, diet and nutrition, physical, emotional, just the one piece of advice that you would like everyone to know?
One piece of advice I'd like everyone to know. If I could invite people to do like one thing every day, and I want to make this two things as I start to say this already, but if I think one thing every day to incorporate into their lifestyle, it would be, other than hydrating, it would be to get outside in the first like 30 minutes of being awake, get in the natural daylight, walk barefoot ideally for 30 minutes to an hour, and just be outside in nature, moving your body, expose yourself to natural daylight as soon as you can.
I'm literally going to go outside as soon as we wrap this up and put my feet on the earth, because I haven't gotten to yet. Yeah. So thank you for that reminder. This was really great. And again, if you would like more from Gracie, you can find all of her information in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Jessica.
That concludes this episode. If this resonated with you, please give it a rating and review. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out on Instagram. I would love to hear from you. Links are in the show notes. I sincerely thank you for your time and your presence.